Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Poetry 1, course code 403, lecture 6. First of all, we'll have a little recap of lecture 5, that we have had an introduction in the text. The narrator told us that it was spring season. Spring is indicative of energy, vigor, youth, starting of new things. Basically, it aims at revival. Then after that, it was followed by a series of portraits. All those pilgrims who had gathered there at the Tabard Inn, उन सब का एक डिटेल्ड डिस्क्रिप्शन दी गई है कि वो कौन लोग हैं, कहाँ से आए हैं, किस क्लास से ताल्लुक़ रखते हैं और उन्होंने उस वक्त क्या पहना हुआ है और उनके क्या इंटरेस्ट हैं, क्या उनके सोशल रैंकिंग है. तो उन सारे पिलग्रिम्स के बारे में, उनका सोशल स्टेटस क्या है, उनकी रैंकिंग क्या है, क्या उनसे क्या सपोज किया जाता है, क्या उनसे एक्सपेक्टेशंस, सोशल या रिलीजियस एक्सपेक्टेशंस उनसे क्या हैं और वो किस तरह की चीज़ों में इंटरेस्टेड हैं, क्या काम वो कर रहे हैं. First of all, we had the description of the character of Knight, who was a gentleman and he had knighthood, as we had discussed earlier also, कि उस ज़माने में बहुत एक service, knighthood was considered to be an honor. लोग काम करते थे for the king and they would go for the wars of their lords and they would bring fame and glory to him by succeeding in those great wars. Then we had the knight's son, the squire, with him. He wanted to be a knight. He had taken up some journeys, but so far he was not really able to follow the model that was set up by his father, the knight. Then there was the yeoman with them. The yeoman was under the service of the knight. We had the prioress. This was the first. So the first three characters belonged to the feudal class. They belonged to the feudal system. Then we had the prioress, the monk and the friar. Three of these characters, they belong to the church. These are ecclesiastical characters. Ecclesiastic basically is from religion. So they were the religious characters. They belonging to the church. They belonged to the church. The first one was prioress. Prioress is a nun and her name was Eglantine and she had good manners of eating and speaking and she read the services of the church in a very sweet voice from her nose. Then we had the character sketches of, we had the description of the monk and the friar. And we come to know about the corruption of the time, that how people dealt with these people who had the authority, who had and how they were doing their, how well they were doing their duties. Then there is a merchant who belonged to his class, and then we had the Oxford clerk. The Oxford clerk is another character after the yeoman and after the knight, who was a perfect example of and he was once again a model. He was interested only in learning, in scholarly books, in philosophy. So whatever money he received, he would spend all that money for the purpose of learning. Then we had the sergeant of law, lawyer is there. Then Franklin was there. Franklin is a country gentleman, the cook, the shipman. So we have people belonging to all the classes, beginning from the feudal class, from the court people. Later on we have people from social class like the lawyer, the doctor, the country gentleman. Then finally we even had the student like the scholar, the Oxford clerk. Later on we had some people belonging to the lower class also, like we had the plowman, the miller, the municipal. So all these characters, they symbolize different stratas of the society in the 14th century. And the description, itni clear or vivid description दी है narrator ने इनकी. Chaucer has tried to portray the way he saw these things happening in the society. So some critics believe that he has tried to portray he has painted those characters in the prologue to the Canterbury Tales. So his description of the characters is vivid and we can actually imagine, we can visualize that what type of a person that person would look. So we are left only with two characters, the summoner and the pardoner. After that we will come to know that what else is there, because so far we only have had the introduction to the prologue to the Canterbury Tales. After that we had the description of the pilgrims, and now after these two characters the narrator will tell us that what they are going to do. A summoner was there with us in that place that had a fire red cherubim's face. A sauce flame he was, with iron narrow, as hoot he was, and lecherous as a sparrow, which scaled brows, black and piled herd. So there was a summoner also with them, and he had the face like that of an angel. He had pimples on his face, and with small eyes, with narrow eyes, and he was as lecherous as a sparrow. So he was active and he was lustful like a sparrow. With scaled brows, black and piled beard. So his beard was piled, and he had black, very thin eyebrows. Of his visage, of his features, children were afraid. So Chaucer must have noticed, he has mentioned that when the children walking in the street, they were afraid of the appearance of the summoner. Summoner is basically an employer in the court. When he is an ecclesiastical person, so he works in the court, the one who sends summons to the people. Their nes quicksilver, letage, ne brimstone, brass, ceros, ne oil of tartar noon, ne ointment that would cleanse or bite. So there was no silver, no white lead, no brimstone, no mineral, not even an ointment that would clean or that would burn his pimples, that him might helpen of his vilkes white. So his white pimples, they might be helped. How can they be helped? That if he applies something to it and he can get rid of those pimples. But there was nothing in the world, the narrator says, that no matter what he applied to it, he would not get rid of his pimples, nor of the knob sitting on his cheeks. Well loved he garlic, onion and eke leeks. So all those things that could be used for removing pimples from the skin, from the face. So he, no matter whatever he applied on his skin, he would not get rid of it. And it was so strange that even children would be afraid of it. And he loved garlic, onion and leeks. Leeks is a vegetable. And for to drinken strong wine, red as blood. And what he loved more, he loved to eat garlic and onion and leek, and to drink strong wine, which was as red as blood. Then would he spake and cries as he were wood. And after having all these, after having drunk the red wine, he would speak as if he were senseless, as if he was mad. He would speak and cry very loudly as if he was mad. And when that we well drunken had the wine, then would he speak no word but Latin. And during that time, when he would have drunk that red wine, he would not speak a single word other than Latin. He would speak only Latin during that time. A few terms had he, 2 or 3, that he had learned out of some degree. So he must have learned those 2 or 3 terms of Latin from somewhere, and whenever he would be drunk, whenever he had taken wine, the red wine, he would only speak Latin language, the 2 or 3 terms. He would keep on repeating those terms. The wonder is he heard it all the day. That it's not something strange that how he came to know about those terms. He heard those terms around him all the day. And eke he brawn well how that a jay can clappen what as well as can the Pope. So he was also jay is a bird. He was also well known as a bird. And he could be well called Walter. Walter is somebody very respectful, very honorable in the society. So as honorable as a Walter or a Pope. But whoso could in the other thing him grope. Grope is try, and whosoever made him or try to make him do something else, then had he spent all his philosophy, he would forget. If anybody tried to make him do something else, he would forget all his learning. A quaestio quid eris would he cry. So these are the terms of these are the Latin terms that are used in law. So he would start saying these terms. He must have heard these terms probably from some lawyer. He was a gentle harlot and a kind. Harlot is a rascal. He was a kind of a rascal, a very well-built person, and a kind. He was kind also. A better fellow should men not find. No, people would not find any better fellow than him. He would suffer for a quart of wine. If he had the pint of wine, he would have it. A good fellow to have his concubine. Concubine is the mistress. He would be a good fellow who would use his mistress, and later on would take excuse of her. A 12th month and excuse him at full. Full privily a finch eke could he pull. So what he would do later, he would use it, he would use her, and later on he would take excuse from her. And if he found, oh where a good fellow, or where is anywhere, if anywhere he found a good person, he would teach him to have none o. In Swiss cast of the Archideacon's curse, but if a man's soul were in his purse, for in his purse he should punished be. Purse is the Archideacon's hell, said he, but well I would he lied right indeed, of cursing ought each guilty man him dread. So whenever he found somebody who whenever he found a good fellow, he would teach him that in such cases, the people who were afraid of excommunication due to their bad deeds, he would assure them that they would not get, he would assure them that unless and until they are in the Archdeacon's cave, they will not be punished. They will not be punished for it. So he assured them, and the narrator says that I'm sure that he was lying and he was not lying whatever he was saying. So of course he says that the guilty men, they ought to dread the bad things that they have done. For curse falsely right as a soiling Sabbath. So curse always lays as the absolution saves, and also war him of the significant. In danger had he at his own guise is the manner, in his own manner. So in his area where he was the bishop, the district, they were the young girls of the diocese. So he was aware of the area where he was the bishop. He was aware of the secrets of and knew her counsel and was all her rede. So he knew the secrets of the young girls, and he advised them in different matters. A garland had he set upon his head, so he was wearing a garland over his head, as great as it were for an ale stake, as if it was a kind of a pot, like so he was carrying something greater on his head. A brokeler had he made him of a cake. So he was also wearing a brokeler. A sheet was also there on his head. Now the kind of thing that he was carrying on his head, it looked like maybe बाल्टी की तरह की चीज जो कि वो अपने सर के ऊपर उठाया हुआ था, उसने अपने गार्लैंड के ऊपर उसको सजाया हुआ था. With him there rode a gentle pardoner. एक partner भी उनके साथ था. Partner is somebody who gives pardons to people. People come and confess their sins and that person gives them, pardons them. Of Rouncewell, his friend and his compeer. So he was his convent, his companion. Now the pardoner and summoners, they were together because sometimes their works in the ecclesiastical court, they overlapped and they had to do similar works, or sometimes they were working together. So they were companions. Summoner and the pardoner, they were the companions. That straight was common for the court of Rome. He was coming straight from the court of Rome. Full loud his song, come hither, love to me. So he was singing fully in the loud voice, come here, love me. This summoner brought to him a stiff burden. So he was carrying a stiff burden, he was carrying a heavy load. Would never trumpet of half so great a son. And he spoke as loudly as a trumpet. Trumpet is a kind of बाजा which जिसको के बजाकर लोगों को इकट्ठा किया जाता है, या sometimes it is used in songs also. उसको songs में भी use किया जाता है, लेकिन usually trumpet एक किस्म का बगल है जो पुराने ज़मानों में बादशाह जब आते थे तो बजाया जाता था. तो उसकी आवाज़ एक trumpet से भी ज़्यादा ऊंची थी. This partner had hair as yellow as wax. So his hair were as yellow as wax. उसके बाल wax की तरह के पीले थे. But smooth it hang as doth a strike of flax. वो बिल्कुल wax वो flax की तरह से hang हुए हुए थे. But ounces hence his locks that he had. They were hanging like the thin pigtails, and therewith he his shoulders overspread. He had spread them over his shoulders, but thin it lay, but colpons un and un. So one by one, they were the locks were they looked thin. He had very little hair, and the locks were lying on his shoulders one by one. But hood for jollity. Jollity is the pleasure word he known. So this is something that he knew the best. He took pleasure. But hood for jollity word he known. Jollity is pleasure, so he took pleasure. For it was trussed up in his wallet. Him thought he rode all of the new jet. So he was having those, since he was coming straight from the court of Rome, so he was having those pardons, those sermons that the papers that he had given to people as pardons of their sins. So he was carrying them in his wallet, and he thought that he is going to he rode all of a new jet. Jet is the latest fashion. So he rode in the latest fashion. He thought, this was his thinking, that he appears the most fashionable of men. Dishevelly, save his cap, he rode all bare. Dishevelly, with his hair loose, save his cap, he was not wearing anything. He rode all bare. He rode bareheaded. He was not wearing anything on his head. Swish, glaring iron had he as an air. So his eyes, they were as bright as that of the hare. They were glaring as if these are the eyes of a hare. A vernicle had he sewed upon his cap. A vernicle is a kind of image. So he was having that, he had fastened that image on his cap, probably the image of the Christ. His wallet lay before him in his lap, and he had his wallet lying in his lap. Breadful of pardon. Breadful is brimful. Coming from Rome, all hoot. A voice he had as smell as hath a goat. So his voice was as small, as little as that of a goat. So full of having, he was having all those pardons that he was coming directly from Rome. He had those brimful pardons with him, and his voice was as small as that of a goat. No beard had he. He did not have any beard. They never should have. He never had any beard. As smooth it was as it were late shave. So it was very smooth as if he had recently shaved. I trow he were a gelding or a mare, but of his craft fro berek into wear. So he was gelding, or he was a as if he were a mare, and his skill, he was very skillful in his work. He was very careful about his work. Ne was there swish another pardoner. There was not any other pardoner like him. For in his mail he had a pillow beer. So in his bag he had a pillowcase, which that he said was Our Lady, while he said he had a goblet of the sail that Saint Peter had when that he went upon the sea till Jesus Christ him hent. So what he carried, he was having a pillow beer in his bag, a pillowcase in his bag. Moreover, he said that he carried that for the lady, and he said that he had a piece of sail that Saint Peter carried when he was looking for Jesus Christ, when he was looking for him, when he called him. He had a cross of laton full of stones. So he had a cross of laton, and in a glass he had pig's bones. So he was carrying all these things. First of all he had the piece of sail. No, before that he had a bag having the pillowcase. Then he had the piece of sail. Later on he had some, we come to know that he had some precious stones with him and precious jewels with him. He had some bones of pigs in the glass, and with this relics, when that he found a poor man dwelling upon land, upon a day he got him more money than that the person got in months too. Now what happened? Whenever he saw somebody on the land, even a very very poor person living on the ground, he would get more money out of him than his 2 months salary, or his 2 months earning. So he was such a clever, such a flatterer, such a flatterer that he would take more money than the poor people had, and he knew how to take money out of people. And thus, with vain flattery and japes, he made the person and the people his apes. So he convinced them, he made them, he played with the people, he tried to convince them. So through his flattery, through his tricks, he was a very tricky person. Through his tricks, he knew how to take money, how to make people give him money. Even the poorest people, they made him money. But truly to tell at last, so to tell truly, finally, he was in church a noble ecclesiast. He could he read a lesson or a story, but elder best he song an offertoyer. So the offering. So he could tell the story or a lesson to a person in a better way when the people, they paid for their sins. So best of all, when they were paying, he could best of all they were paying their offerings, he could tell them, he could read to them the lessons or the stories, the religious and noble stories. So he was a very noble church person, he was a noble clergyman. So this line is basically ironical because he is such a flatterer, he has got such tricks that he would take money out of the poorest people. For well he wist when that song was sung, he most preached and well affiled his tongue to win silver as he full well could. Therefore he sung the merrily and loud. So what happened? He would do he had a very smooth tongue. He since he was a great flatterer, he would convince people, he would make them believe, he would convince them, and he would make them believe the way he is saying it should be like this. And he would preach them, and he would, through his tongue, through his flattery, he would win silver, because people afraid of their sins, they would give him silver and money as much as they can, and therefore he would very happily and very loudly sing. Now, have I told you soothly in a clause, the estate, the array, the number, and eke the cause. So from this line onwards, the description of the pilgrims is complete, and we come to know that the narrator is now telling that now have I told you soothly, that I have truly told you, I have very clearly told you in a clause that in all what we have read, the estate, the condition, the social rank, the position, the number, that how many of them were there, and eke the cause, and what was the cause, what was the reason why that assembled was this company in Southwark at this gentle hostelry, that hight the tabard, fast stay by the bell, but now is time to yo for to tell. So he says that whatever I have told you earlier, it's the time for that. And he says that I have told you the condition, the position, the social rank of these people, the type of dress they were wearing, the number of the pilgrims, the cause, that why they had assembled in that company in Southwark, in that Tabard Inn, fast by the bell, which was near the bell in Tabard Inn. So he says that, but now is time to yo for to tell. How that we bear us that ilke night, that when we were in that hostelry all night, and afterward I tell of our voyage is the voyage, the journey, and all the remnant of our pilgrimage. But first I pray you of your courtesy that ye narrate it not my villanage. Now he talks about the host, that by the night he conducted us very well in that inn, and after I have told you of after this I will tell you of the whole journey, the remaining part of the pilgrimage that they were going to take. But he says that before that he requests the readers of their courtesy, so that whatever he is going to say, they should not say any ill about it. Though that I plainly speak in this matter. So he says that in this matter he is going to speak very plainly. He is very honestly going to describe the things, to tell you his words and his cheer. So whatever the pilgrims are going to describe, whatever the stories, because they are going to say, nay, though I spake her words properly, that I speak their words properly, for this ye known all so well as I. So just as I know, you all also know well. Whoso shall tell a tale after a man, he moot rehearse as nay as ever he can. So whatever the person tells, he must tell as truly as he can. Average a word if it be in his charge. So every single word that he says is his responsibility. All spake he never so roodilish and large. So he should not speak large, very rudely, or he should not speak ill of anything, or else he would tell his tale untrue. Otherwise, if he is not rude sometimes, so he says that he is trying to talk about the fact that when the people are telling the stories, since they are going to tell the stories, something that they have seen, something they have heard, they might have read that somewhere. So he says that sometimes they might be explaining from their own experience also. So sometimes it may be the case that they may be rude, or they may say something that is too big for them to say. He says that if this is not the case, what is the other thing? They will be telling false. They will be narrating false stories. So they will be untrue tales, or feign something fake, false, or find words new, or they have to rephrase the things. They have to find new things to say. He may not spare, although he were his brother. He moved all well, say a word or as another. Christ spake himself full broad in holy writ, and well ye would know villainy in it. Villainy is the ill manners. That even Christ spoke. You also know that Christ spoke, even through it is written in the Holy Scriptures that the Christ spoke broad. He also spoke the truth. So he said that even if it was his brother, he would not speak. So men have to choose the words very carefully, or one for the other, in order to be less arrogant or indignant about whatever they are saying. Eke Plato saith, whoso that can him read, the words moot be chosen to the deed. So Plato, first he gave the reference of Holy Christ, that Holy Christ always spoke the truth, and his preachings, they are according to the religion also, the people are supposed to tell the truth. And Plato also said that the words must be chosen very carefully according to the deeds. Also I pray you to forgive it me. So now the narrator says that I request you to forgive me for this. All have I not set folk in her degree, that I have not arranged the people according to their dignity, according to their social status, here in this tale, as that they should stone. So he says that in this prologue to the Canterbury Tales, the narrator says that I have not arranged, or I have not talked about people according to their social status, according to their rank. My wit is short, ye may well understand. So he says that, now it's Chaucer here, he says that my wit is short, you might understand. Great cheer made our host us every shone, and to the supper set he us anon. He served us with whitetail at the best. Strong was the wine, and well to drink us lest. A seemly man our host was withal, for to hand being a marshal in an hall. So he says that their host was a very great man. He made comfortable, he made cheerful to everyone. He served the supper, he set everyone for the supper, and he served them the food, the best food, and he served them the strong wine that that they drank. And he was a capable man. He was a man who could be fit for being a marshal at the table. A marshal is basically a man who arranges the feasts, and he knows how to seat people in the hall, in a dining hall. So he was fit for that. A large man he was with iron steep. He was a well-built man with the steep eyes, with sharp features. A fair burgess is there known in cheap. So you would not find in that place any fine person than him. Bold of his speech and ways, and well taught, and of manhood him liked right not. So he was bold in his speech and in his ways, and he was taught well. He knew things, and of manhood he did not lack anything in manhood. Lacked here refers to lack, to deprive of something. So his character did not lack anything, whatever he needed for being a man. Eke thereto, so he was a worthy man. Eke thereto he was right a merry man, he was a happy man, and after supper playing he began. So he started playing jests, he started talking and gossiping about after having the supper. And spake of mirth amongst other things. And he started talking about mirth, talking about happiness among other things. when that we had made our reckonings and said thus, now lordings truly, ye been to me right welcome heartily. Now he tried to address them, he welcomed them, he started with sir, he started addressing them, and he said that you are all welcome here, I wholeheartedly welcome you, for by truth, if that I shall not lie, I saw not this year so merry a company, atones in this Harbrew is as now, fain world I don ye mirth, wiste I how. So what he is saying that all through this year I have not seen such a happy company as it has gathered here now at this Tabard Inn. So he welcomed them all and he was very happy about that, and he said that fine would I don you mirth, that I will try to, he would try to please all of those pilgrims if he knew how to do that. So this is something he is undertaking some mission. He is saying that since he is happy about their being together at that place, it is such a happy company that he has not seen. पूरे उसने पिछले एक साल में उस तरह की हैप्पी कंपनी नहीं देखी, लोगों को इस तरह खुशी से इकट्ठे होते बातें करते गॉसिप करते हुए उसने नहीं देखा है. तो उसने उनको कहा है कि अगर उसको पता हुआ कि किस तरह से उनको खुश किया जा सकता है तो वो उनको खुश करने की पूरी कोशिश करेगा, उनके लिए आराम और उनके लिए खुशी का बायस बनेगा. And of a mirth I am right now by thought that he has thought of a pleasant thing. उसने एक बहुत अच्छी चीज के बारे में सोचा है that might bring them happiness, जिससे उन तक खुशी आ सके. To do ye ease and it shall cost not. To do ye ease, it will be easy for you to do, and it shall cost not. It will not cost anything. ये priceless है. उसने कहा कि मुझे एक ऐसी चीज के बारे में सोचा है जो कि आप सब लोगों के लिए खुशी लेकर आएगी, जो आप सब लोग कर सकते हैं if you agree, and इसकी कोई कीमत नहीं है. ये goon to Canterbury, God your speed. So you are all going to Canterbury. Allah may speed your journey. The blissful martyr quite your meed. Meed is the reward. The blessed martyr may give you the reward of visiting that shrine. And well I woot as a goon by the way, ye shapen your to talent and to play. So he says that God may speed up your journey, and the blissful martyr may reward you for visiting the shrine as you have planned to go by the way. So on the way you may have a safe journey as you go to tell and to play. For truly confront nay mirth is known to ride by the way dumb as a stone. So it will not bring any happiness if you keep on riding on your way like as dumb as a stone. Stones don't speak. So he said कि पत्थरों की तरह से अगर चलते रहेंगे तो ये जो लंबा सफर है it would become painful, वो मजीद लंबा लगेगा और उसमें कोई खुशी नहीं रहेगी. And there too will I make on you despot. So he is giving them suggestion. वो एक उनको आइडिया दे रहा है. As I said erst, and do you some comfort, that in order to bring them comfort, उनको comfortable करने के लिए, उनको आराम दे, उनके आराम के लिए. And if you like it all by own assent, कि अगर आप सब लोग इस चीज पर रजामंद हो जाएं, आपकी अगर मर्जी हो, for to stand at my judgment, to that he will stand as the judge for that, and for to worken as I shall you say. So since they will be moving on their journey, they will be riding, along with that they will be telling stories to each other. So he has proposed this idea that if all the pilgrims they agree on telling the stories, he has offered his judgment to them, that I would act as your judge, and you will all follow how I say. So he offers them to be their guide, to guide them to the Canterbury. So after this, from line 780 to 790, it all discusses that proposal, that how it should be done, or what type of tales can be there, that each of you to short. So after that, from line 791, that each of you to short with our way, that in order to make the way shortened, each of you in this voyage shall tell tales too. So everyone will tell 2 tales to Canterbury ward. While going to the Canterbury जाते हुए 2 tales हर pilgrim बताएगा, I mean it so, and homeward he shall tell an other 2. और कैंटरबरी से घर वापस आते हुए वो फिर 2 स्टोरीज बताएगा, 2 कहानियां सुनाएगा. इसका मतलब है कि तमाम पिलग्रिम्स जो हैं वो 4 स्टोरियां सुनाएंगे, 2 स्टोरीज जाते हुए और 2 स्टोरीज कैंटरबरी से वापसी पर, ऑफ एडवेंचर्स दैट विल ऑन हैंड बिफॉल, and of which of you that beareth him best of all. So any stories that you bear, that you have experienced, that you know, so you can tell the adventures, the stories of adventure for each pilgrim. So after this, from line 796, he had given this suggestion here. These lines from line 791 to 796, these indicate the host's suggestion that he has got some idea for the rest of the pilgrims, कि उसके पास एक idea है कि उनको बजाय खामोशी से पत्थर की तरह सफर करने के, उसके पास एक आइडिया है कि अगर वो स्टोरीज 2 स्टोरीज जाते हुए और 2 स्टोरीज आते हुए सब पिलग्रिम्स अगर सुनाएं तो उनका रास्ता भी शॉर्ट हो जाएगा और इस तरह से उनका सफर भी अच्छे तरीके से गुजर जाएगा. After line 796, people had they gave their suggestions and they agreed upon it. The thought is this, to cut fill. Now after that, the problem was, I just summarized the remaining lines from 796 to 845, that when they had all agreed, and the problem after that was who is going to start the story and in what order they should do that. So the host said that the prioress and the monk and knight, everybody has to tell the story. So it was decided by mutual consent that everybody, the thought is this, so the truth is this, the cut fell to the knight, that all the lot, they all agreed that knight should be the first person to tell the story, of which full blithe and glad were every wight. So everybody felt very happy, very glad about this, that the knight is going to tell the first story, until he moved his tail as was reason, by forward and by composition, and ye can heard what needeth words more. And when this good man saw that it was so, what he had done, so it was by reason also, it was right that everybody was happy about it. Why? Because he was somebody who held a higher social rank also. He was among all the pilgrims, knight was the one who held the higher social rank also, so it was good. And he also started this, his story, he was also since he was obedient, he had never disagreed on anything, so he also gladly accepted it. As he that ways was and obedient to keep his forward by his free assent, he said, "Sin I shall begin the game, what welcome be the cut, so a goddess name, now let us ride and hearkeneth what I say." And with that word we ridden forth our way, and he began with right a merry cheer, his tale and said as ye may hear. So he started off with his tale. So the knight was a good fellow. He agreed whatever decision was taken by the rest of the lot. He was an obedient fellow, and he said that since it is mutually agreed by everyone, so he welcomed them all, and he said that since he was the first one to start, he took the god's name, and he said that now when I ride, and here is my tale, and he rode on his way, and he began with his tale very happily. Now this was the end of it, that after this the Canterbury Tales would begin. In the prologue to the Canterbury Tales, if we look at the whole text now, if we draw an outline after reading the text, we had read about the introduction, we had an elaborate introduction that explained that what is to come. हमें राइटर ने, हमें नैरेटर ने, पोएट ने बहुत शुरू में ही बता दिया था कि ये किस चीज़ के बारे में, क्या सीजन है, सेटिंग क्या है, क्या हो रहा है. उसके बाद he explained कि why all these pilgrims they have gathered there. Then he started off with their description कि क्या हर किसी का क्या नाम था, वो किस तरह के दिखने में कैसे थे, और उनका काम क्या था, उनके इंटरेस्ट क्या थे, उनके शौक क्या थे, वो क्या करना चाहते थे, और उनकी जो ड्यूटीज थी, जिस भी सोशल क्लास से उनका ताल्लुक था, उन्होंने उस ड्यूटी को किस तरह से निभाया और क्या क्या काम उसमें उन्होंने किए. After that elaborate description of the pilgrims, उसके बाद host की suggestion कि मैं आपके as a guide I will travel with you at my own expense, and in order to bring comfort to all the pilgrims, सबके आराम और सुकून की खातिर he gave a suggestion. उसने एक suggestion दी, उसने एक मशवरा दिया कि अगर तमाम pilgrims कैंटरबरी जाते हुए 2 स्टोरीज सुनाएं और कैंटरबरी से वापस आते हुए भी 2 स्टोरीज सुनाएं, तो ये जो सफर है ये बहुत अच्छे तरीके से गुजर जाएगा. Now this was basically a plan for the Canterbury Tales, but Chaucer's ingenious that lies in the description of the characters. The way he describes his characters, that is marvelous, that is unsurpassable in English literature. And the way he has collected the number of tales from different peoples in different dialects, in different sorts of languages, in different types, that is ingenious, that is marvelous. So the host suggestion, उसने जो मशवरा दिया था, it was accepted by people, it was accepted by all the pilgrims, and now the problem was who should begin it. So there was a kind of agreement. Everybody said that it should be the knight who should begin it first. So उन्होंने कुछ मशवरे के बाद, कुछ बहस मुबाहिसे के बाद ये तय हो गया था कि नाइट जो है वो पहली कहानी सुनाएगा. He will be the first one to begin. So this was the decision taken by them. So we had read about all these in the text. We had read about all the characters of the prologue, of all the pilgrims of the prologue to the Canterbury Tales. Now we had the detailed discussion of the description of pilgrims. Let's have a look at all the characters. The knight, if we look at him, he is a highest ranked soldier. He wore a stained and dark fustian tunic. He possessed fine horses. He was a distinguished, model, honorable. He was a generous person. He was truthful. He never spoke very rudely, and he was very polite in his dealings, in whatever he said throughout his life. And he participated in missions abroad also. And he had all those missions, they had brought fame to him. And Chaucer thinks highly of himself. He is one of the ideal characters Chaucer has portrayed. Next we had the squire. The squire was the knight in training. He was the son of the knight, and he was a young fellow, and he was on the probationary period, or on training period. He wanted to become a knight, but at present he had not many journeys abroad. He had curly locks. He wore embroidered multicolored dress, and he possessed agility and strength. He was very powerful. He danced and he wrote songs and poems, and he was one of the representative of the courtly love. He drew pictures of them. He was very obedient. He was excited about life. He was very bright and colorful. He should have better intentions and has high hopes for him as a knight, because he fell short of the ideal set by his father. The yeoman एक सर्वेंट है, एक फॉरेस्टर है जो जंगल में काम कर रहा है, जो के नाइट की सुपरविजन में काम कर रहा है. अगेन इसकी डिस्क्रिप्शन अगर हम देखें तो उसने एक कोट पहना हुआ है, एक ग्रीन कलर का हुड पहना हुआ है, एंड ही हैड अ पीकॉक feathers and a bow with him. Since he was a forester, so probably for the purpose of hunting he had them, and he had a head like a nut and a tan face, probably because of wandering about here and there in the jungle. Since he's a forester, so his complexion is tan. He wore a medal of Saint Christopher. He was a religious person. No one knew where his money came from. He was full of pride about his money. Now, if we look at these three characters, they are not only individuals, they are representing their class also. We had one older man, an elderly person, the knight. Then we had somebody from in the middle. We had a young character also, the squire. And now we have got their servant also, the yeoman also, who was a forester belonging to the lower social rank, but belonging to the same class, same feudal system. So in this way, these characters, they are individual and they represent their class also, that they can be grouped together under one heading. Next we had prioress. She belonged to the church. She was a prioress. Her name was Madame Eglantine. She had a very fashionable modern name. She was a high-ranking nun in an abbey. Abbey is a church, a monastery. She was shy and elegant. She spoke daintily in French, and the French, this is something noteworthy here, that she spoke French which was non-standard. She did not speak standard French. And she was sympathetic towards animals. She liked money, and she delivered the services from her nose, as if she were acting. So this is something, she was not delivering those services sincerely or truly or from her heart, not devotedly. She was doing it as if she was acting there. She was too concerned with animals, too materialistic, and doesn't care for her services. So she is the first character who has been introduced here, but she is corrupt. She is not concerned with her services. She is concerned with her own manners. So once again, if we look at the character of the prioress, she belongs to the church, but she is an embodiment of the courtly love. She is embodiment of the manners of the court. She has got manners, etiquettes, and the ways of the courtly people, like a princess or a queen. The monk is a clergyman. He is uncloistered. Monks के से एक्सपेक्टेशन ये होती है कि वो अपने क्लॉइस्टर में, उनका जो हट है, जो जगह उनको प्रोवाइड की गई है, वहाँ पर रहें और पढ़ें. इनका काम, इनका ताल्लुक सिर्फ प्रीचिंग से, पढ़ने से, फिलॉसफी से, इन चीज़ों से है. एंड दे शुड नॉट बी कंसर्न्ड विद वर्ल्डली थिंग्स, विद मटेरियलिस्टिक परसूट्स. बट द मॉन्क, ही वॉज अनक्लॉइस्टर्ड, ही वॉज वर्ल्डली, ही वॉज मटेरियलिस्टिक, एंड ही लव्ड hunting. He loved going out, riding. He had got good horses. He wrought cunningly. He fashioned pin. He used a fashioned pin with which he fastened his hood at his chin. His sleeves on his coat were garnished with fur. He was bald. He did not have any hair. He was fat and tan also. He wore leather boots. He was greedy and never cheap. And he liked to hunt. He loved hunting. This was something against his preachings, because he did not concentrate on the religious preachings. Whatever he had read, he did not read anything, because he was uncloistered, क्योंकि वो उस हट में तो रहता ही नहीं था जिसमें उसको सपोज किया जाता था. और जिस बुक की, जिन स्क्रिप्चर्स की ये तालीमात थी कि एक मॉन्क जो है वो हंट नहीं कर सकता, या उसमें ये कहा जाता था कि जो हंटर्स हैं, जो शिकारी हैं, वो होली मैन नहीं है, वो नेक लोग नहीं हैं. He did not abide by those laws. He possessed a lot of money. He ignored the regular rules. Then we had the friar. His name was Hubbard. He was similar to a priest, but basically the work of a friar is to take money from the rich and the wealthy people and to hear their confessions and to spend that money for the betterment of the poor people of the society and the needy people and the lepers. His skin, his complexion was white. He had very bright eyes. He was a festive fellow. He loved eating. He was strong. He was courteous, and he received money from anyone. No matter the person is very poor, he would receive money from that also. As I told in the beginning, that a friar is the one, he would take money from the rich and spend it for the betterment of poor people, for the lepers, for the needy people. But he would take money from anyone and he would spend it for on his own expense, for his needs. He knew all the bars and barmaids. He didn't know any lepers and the poor. Now this is something contradictory here, contradictory to his teaching, because he is not any ordinary man. वो रिलीजन से ताल्लुक रखता है जहाँ पर जिसके तालीमात के मुताबिक उसको गरीब लोगों का पता होना चाहिए ताकि वो उनकी हेल्प कर सके. उसकी बजाय उसको दूसरी एक्सट्रीम पर उसको क्या पता है, उसको बार्स पता है, उसको पता है कि कहाँ कहाँ जो है वो शराब खाने मौजूद हैं, कहाँ कहाँ कहवा खाने मौजूद हैं और कौन कौन सी जो वेमेन हैं उनको चला रही हैं, उन सब के साथ उसके बहुत अच्छे ताल्लुकात हैं. बट ही डज नॉट हैव एनी गुड रिलेशंस विद द पुअर एंड द लेपर्स एंड द नीडी पीपल एंड ही डज नॉट नो एनीथिंग अबाउट देम. Then we had the merchant. He is a trader or the buyer and seller, and he had a forked beard. He wore a costly beaver hat. He was dressed in a motley coat. He was an expert at currency exchange. He hid his debts very well from everyone, that nobody could even know that he was in debt. He was a mysterious and arrogant person who was very skillful in his work. The Clerk of Oxford, another ideal character of Chaucer. He was a student at Oxford of philosophy and religion. He was very thin, a very hollow-looking man. Now, since he is concerned only with the learning, with the books, so he is not at all interested in eating and drinking. So he does not have that. So that is reflected even in his physique. Physically, he is very weak. He wore threadbare overcoat. His only care was to study. So this was the only thing that he loved. He did not care about material things. He was totally unworldly, because whatever money he had received, he never kept that money. He never saved it. He spent it for learning. He spent it on buying books. So for him, learning was his priority. It was above everything. The sergeant of law, he was a lawyer. He wore a homely party-colored coat. He had a girt with a silken belt of pinstrip stuff. He was discreet, he was wary and wise. बहुत अकलमंद इंसान था. Lawyers, as we know, that they are very clever people. इतने चालाक होते हैं कि वो जब आप उनसे बात कर रहे होते हैं, आप किसी बात पर उनको कन्विंस नहीं कर सकते, चाहे वो अपनी बात पर गलत ही क्यों ना हो, वो लोगों को कन्विंस कर लेते हैं. So the sergeant of law, this lawyer, in Chaucer's time, he was again the same. He had the similar qualities of persuading people, of convincing people. So he was a man of reference. People would give his reference. He had a very good memory, and he never made mistakes. He remembered the things even years old, 200 or 300 years old things he remembered by heart, and he would tell about those things. So he was a good fellow who would remember everything, and he had saved some money also. The Franklin is a wealthy country gentleman. He had a white beard and red complexion. He had a dagger and a little purse of silk that hung at his girdle. Now, he also wore a colorful dress, and he was very kind, and he took pleasure in happiness, and no one stood higher than him. He was a wealthy rich man. He was a filthy rich man, and he had all sorts of meat and wine present at his home all the times. So as the narrator explains, that he, as if it snowed of meat and wine in his home. he only had nice things and was picky with his food. After that, we have the 5 members of the guild, the tradesmen, and their gear was new, and their knives and girdles and pouches were silver. Now, and there are certain other characters also. I discussed some of them to refresh the memory about the character sketches of these pilgrims. Now, when we, since we have just revised the description of all these pilgrims, the first point that comes in the mind, whether they are individuals or types, the way the narrator has explained their appearance and everything, their nature, the type of dress they are wearing, he has given the individual description of these characters. But it is not only the individual description of the pilgrims, they represent types also. For example, when we talk of the doctor of medicine, or we talk of the lawyer, a lawyer is a wise man, is very clever, and nobody can ever prove something, nobody can ever disprove of something that he says, or the case that he has said, nobody can ever find a fault with it. So these are not just the individual characters, these are the types also. So at the same time, they are individuals as well as types. So when we say type, that means they represent their social class, they represent the class that they belong to. So first of all, we discussed the feudal class, we have the people belonging to the upper class. Secondly, there is a religious group, then there is a social class. Secular characters are also there, because all the characters are not religious. वो तमाम उनमें सिर्फ मजहबी इक़दार मौजूद नहीं है. Some of them, they do not believe even on any religion. So they are secular. They don't have much knowledge about religion. Some are the typical characters. They are typical of a profession, like the knight. He is typical of his profession, but the squire is not a typical character. Similarly, the prioress or the Oxford clerk, they are the typical characters. And then at the same time, we have got certain individualized characters also that do not belong to any class, but they are individual. For example, when we say that a person liked or had certain eating habits or certain habits of wearing something, so that is something individual characteristic of the person. That is not a type. That does not represent any class. So we'll discuss this in detail. We have discussed the characters. Now, something very important here at this stage, that Chaucer's pilgrims have been described. The description is so clear and detailed that the readers can visualize their characters, their personalities. So these personalities, they are evident from the description. So in a way, critics who believe that Chaucer has painted the 14th century through his poetry, it is true, because we can actually visualize. So it is basically his poetry, the prologue to the Canterbury Tales, the way he has given the description of different characters. It is a kind of painting through words. He has painted through words, and we can imagine it. The way, जैसे हम एक तस्वीर देखकर उसके बारे में सोचते हैं कि अच्छा इसकी ओरिजिनल सेटिंग में क्या होगा, किस तरीके से वो इस चौसर की जो डिस्क्रिप्शन है जो पिलग्रिम्स के बारे में, हमें पढ़कर ऐसे ही लगता है कि हम उसको विजुलाइज कर सकते हैं, हम एक्चुअली जैसे उसको देख सकते हैं. तो चौसर ने बेसिकली इन कैरेक्टर्स की डिस्क्रिप्शन में, बिकॉज द मेजर पार्ट ऑफ द प्रोलॉग ऑफ टू द कैंटरबरी टेल्स इज द डिस्क्रिप्शन ऑफ द कैरेक्टर्स. उसके पहले या बाद में तो उसने इंट्रोडक्शन और कंक्लूजन दिया है ना कि स्टोरीज बताई जाएंगी. अच्छा, 2 स्टोरीज जो है उस कैंटरबरी तक जाते हुए और 2 स्टोरीज कैंटरबरी से वापस आते हुए बताएंगे, और कौन पहली स्टोरी बताएगा. सो दीज आर स्मॉल थिंग्स, बट ही हैज सेट अप अ बिगिनिंग एंड द एंडिंग ऑल्सो. Now the major part, the description of the pilgrims, that is very important. उसने लफ्जों की मदद से तस्वीर खींच के रख दी है 14th सेंचुरी की, कि लोग किस तरह से बिहेव करते थे, क्या कंडीशन थी, हाउ दे मूव्ड अबाउट, व्हाट टाइप ऑफ सोशल रिलेशनशिप्स दे हैड। तो उसने उन सारी चीजों को बहुत डिटेल में एक्सप्लेन किया है। नाउ इट्स नॉट ओनली द पिक्चर गैलरी, it is a picture gallery. At the same time, it is not only about the 14th century. वो सिर्फ 14th century के बारे में नहीं है. This is about every age. Even if we put it here today, and if we try to look around ourselves, we will find that these characters, such characters, we will find around ourselves in the society. वेरी मच प्रेजेंट. सो हमें आज भी अपनी सोसाइटी में इस तरह के कैरेक्टर्स मिलते हैं. आज भी हमें वो सारी करप्शन रिलीजन में नजर आती है. हमें वो तमाम सोशल रैंक के जो लोग हैं, जो लोअर क्लास से बिलोंग कर रहे हैं, जो अपर क्लास के जो इसमें लोग हैं, जो फ्यूडल क्लास के लोग हैं, मोस्ट ऑफ देम दे आर प्रेजेंट एक्सेप्ट फॉर दिस आइडिया ऑफ नाइटहुड एंड दैट, बिकॉज दैट वाज समथिंग पर्टिकुलरली एट्रीब्यूटेड और दैट इज एन कैरेक्टरिस्टिक फीचर ऑफ द मिडीवल टाइम्स. So that only that characteristic is missing. Otherwise, if we look at the characters, they are all present even now. They are true to life. वो आज भी उसी तरीका से एक हकीकत है. वो आज भी ऐसा ही लगता है कि चौसर ने 14th सेंचुरी में नहीं लिखा. ऐसा लगता है उनको पढ़ के कि चौसर ने आज की सोसाइटी के बारे में लिखा है. In the next lecture, we will have a detailed discussion on the individually we have discussed the pilgrims, but we will discuss them as the social types. We will discuss them how they can be grouped together, or what sort of combinations could be there, what sort of themes we could draw, because one is the corruption in the, as we just discussed, and we discussed that these characters, they are not individuals, they are types also. So we will have a detailed discussion on what are the different characters who fall under these headings. Allah Hafiz.